Welcome, 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 everybody. It is Wednesday, February 11th, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, or whatever time it happens to be where you are because you are watching us right now. It is time for our Unlimited Wisdom special series, Outwitting the Devil. It's a book by Napoleon Hill, but today we are featuring Mr. Dana Scranton. Now, why do we bring in Dana? Because Dana has done this before with us with a series that we did on the science of getting rich. And we were so impressed that we had to bring him back for Outwitting the Devil. And it was also his idea to do this. So, a little bit about Dana. He has studied at the University of Wyoming, Northwest College, and Stanford University. And he works at making a difference, teaching people how to create an entrepreneurial lifestyle of fun, profit, freedom, and impact. And his famous quote that we have been saying every single week because it is so true, and especially when you watch and you follow Dana, you get this. My purpose in life is to help people create an authentic life of freedom of their choosing on their terms. So, let's get started with our next chapter of Outwitting the Devil, a book by Napoleon Hill featuring Dana Scranton.
Okay. Anyway, last week we met the devil. Napoleon started interviewing this evil dude, and so we got an idea who he was, what his mission in life is. He's a form of energy. You can personify him if you wish, but he's a form of energy. He's the negative part of the energy spectrum, where God is the positive, and so this is which he calls his opposition. But anyway, this devil, whether imaginary or real, has the mission of occupying the minds and the souls of everybody on earth. So he basically owns them. And Napoleon is cross-examining him with a series of questions. And he has found a way to get into the devil's mind to the point where the guy can't lie. Now, that's a real twist for this character. But he is now in the point where Napoleon has got him down on the mat, so to speak, and he is getting ready now to really go after him. And that's what we're going to be seeing today. In the last episode, like I say, they went back and forth as Napoleon tried to get him to admit who he was, what his mission was, and started talking about some of his evil tools. Well, today we're going to learn about the single most important weapon that the devil uses. And as kind of a prelude to that, I want to go over some slides just to get you thinking before we get into it, because it gets going pretty intense. So let me see if I can wind that up for you. And we'll go ahead and get the share going. Okay, now with any luck, you ought to see my slides.
We got it.
Okay. So today, what is going to be revealed is the number one weapon that the devil uses. That's called drifting. And the reason I want to go over this slide deck is because there's some things that I think would be beneficial if you got them planted inside your head. First of all, what is a drifter? A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind. A drifter is one who doesn't know what he wants from life and spends all of his time getting just that. Now, I don't know about you, but I know several people who fit that category. And if the devil's statistics are right, he claims 98% of the people that he controls on this planet probably are drifters of one sort or another. So that's the number one weapon, is drifting. And how does he get people to drift? This guy has no ethics, no morals. He goes right after them before they're even born. Well, the first principle that he uses is the two principles that go with drifting. And we're going to talk about this first one, which is habit. So drifting is the first of these two principles that he exploits, but inside of this drifting are the principles of habit. The second principle is going to be revealed later. I'm not going to disclose that one. And these two put together are really critical to the devil. And so it's going to be today and probably into the next session is going to be covering this particular principle, that is drifting. Now, most people drift, and you may not really think of it that way. If we go back up and look at this definition, you're saying, well, I don't drift, but we all do. To a certain extent, we all have a drifting element in our lives. And so the trick is really to identify it and make it go away. You have to recognize drifting and correct your course before it gets you. And the devil's going to tell you why. Now, I tend to look at it this way: adrift on a vast ocean of ambiguity. That's what the devil wants. He wants you in a patched up raft out on the ocean against the elements, no land in sight. That's his idea of a good time. So I'm going to give you a few quotes here, and these are mine. These are part of a little primer that I'm writing that just breaks this down into a more in your face kind of approach. So this first one: you didn't choose a destination. You didn't pack a compass. You didn't map the stars. You didn't build an oar. You simply stepped onto the water because it was easier than deciding where to go. At first, it feels like freedom, no pressure, no commitments, no hard choices, but that feeling is the first deception. Drifting is not freedom. It is surrender disguised as relief. Now, if you put all that together, now it starts to be a little more personal. And so the people that you know, the people we're trying to help in this community, by reaching out and helping them to build their authentic lives of freedom, a lot of them fall into this category. Every day is like being in a raft drifting on the ocean. They look for, how many people do you know, especially some of the younger generations, not to be biased, but the evidence is there. No pressure, no commitments, no hard choices. Well, there's a price to be paid for that. So this is kind of the metaphor that I came up with, just to kind of explain it. But that ocean is not empty. It's crowded. It has currents that move beneath the surface, trends, ideologies, appetites of various forms, fears, one of the biggest things the devil uses against people, entertainment, outrage cycles, the cycles of rage, groupthink, addiction loops, approval seeking, identity confusion, and on and on. And the winds of the people who drift change by the hour. Let's face it, we're faced with the headlines, the media, the constant flow of information and negativity, social pressure, financial stress, opinions of other people who don't carry your consequences. That's a very important concept. People who get wrapped around approval seeking don't understand that the people that are influencing them with their opinions aren't responsible for the consequences of them absorbing that. So if you're not steering your own ship, you're still being moved, just not by you. And that's the weapon that the devil wants to use. Now, some of this is more human than it is devil, so to speak. It's the things we do to ourselves. But the question you have to ask is, do we really do it to ourselves, or do we allow it to be done? Kind of the same thing. So here's another quote: the devil loves drifting, not because drift looks evil. Drift looks ordinary. That's the problem. Drift looks like I'll figure it out later. Drift looks like I'm just taking a break. Drift looks like I'm keeping my options open. How many times have you heard that one? Drift looks like I'm not ready. Drifting is a life spent in a delusional, passive state where things happen to me. The world does this to me. I can't. It's too late. I'll wait. Maybe someday. And someday never comes. And the destination at which you are to arrive never comes. You just never get there. So then we have This one. One day you feel motivated, so you paddle for an hour. The next day you don't. So you lie down and watch the sky. Your feelings become the captain. I feel like this, I feel like that. Your impulses become the navigation system. You get a wild hair up. I'm going to go for a burger at McDog Foods, or, I'm going to go down and the sun on the beach. And because there's no destination out in the middle of the ocean, you drift from mood to mood, from distraction to distraction, from one identity costume to another, collecting all these experiences, but not building a life worthy of the ultimate judgment, which is well done. And Robert knows that one very well. So drifting is an illusion of your life of habits being acceptable and comfortable because it is unmeasured. Think about that. When you're drifting, as I've, described, there's nothing to measure. And because there's nothing to measure, it feels pretty good. But the moment you measure your life against a definite purpose, that illusion breaks. You suddenly realize that you've been moving, but you're not moving towards anywhere or anything. And that's the scary part that most people don't understand. They're going through life having a good time, feeling good, rationalizing their habits and their attitudes. And then one day they wake up and they're nowhere. So this ambiguity that I started with, it has some very bad characteristics. And the devil loves it because it's his habitat. You don't have to commit. You don't have to be accountable to anyone or anything. You don't have to be right or wrong. You don't have to be brave. You don't have to become someone worthy, deserving, and capable of delivering a purpose and an impact to the world because you don't have one. And ambiguity protects the old self and defeats the other self. And we all know what the other self is from the prior episodes. And ambiguity keeps you safe from risk and permanently separates you from purpose. And that's dangerous. Another quote, drifting is the gradual transfer of your agency to external forces. In other words, your ability to control your life transfers to somebody, something else, in what we have called the institutions of society. Other forces control you. And at first, it's very subtle. You just stop choosing to do hard things. You delay your decisions, you compromise your standards. Just once is all it takes. Then it becomes a structure. You wake up reacting to life instead of creating it. You don't steer the day steers you. You don't shape your mind. Your environment shapes it, and that environment is going to show up here in just a few minutes. And because the ocean is endless in this metaphor, you tell yourself you still have time. And then you don't. You don't have any time left. So the devil, he says this. I think this is the last slide. Yep, that's the last one. After people are born, I make use of what you earthbound called environment as a means of controlling them. This is where the principle of habit enters. The mind is nothing more than the sum total of one's habits. So the reason I went through all of this is to kind of prep you and to get you thinking now that the devil's about to speak, because he's going to unload a whole cache of information. And what I've just kind of given you, most of it in my own words, I hope will help you get a better comprehension for what this guy's up to, but moreover, what the symptoms are that you can help correct in the world through your own efforts, through your own personal development, that can then help us collectively, make the world a better place. So with that said, okay, Craig, you and Robert can punch the button.
Very powerful, Dana.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chapter 4, Drifting with the Devil.
Mr. Earthbound has the power to force the devil to answer his questions. His own knowledge of independent thought and lack of fear are his weapons to force this confession.
Tell me first about your most clever trick, the one you use to ensnare the greatest number of people.
If you force me to give away this secret, it will mean my loss of millions of people now living, and still greater numbers of millions as yet unborn. I beg of you, permit me to pass this one question unanswered.
So His Majesty the Devil fears a mere humble earthbound creature? Is that right?
It is not right, but it is true. You have no right to rob me of my most necessary tool of trade. For millions of years I have dominated earthbound creatures through fear and ignorance. Now you come along and would destroy my use of these weapons by forcing me to tell how I use them. Do you not realize that you will break my grip on every person who heeds this confession you are forcing from me? Have you no mercy? Have you no sense of humor? Have you no sportsmanship?
Stop stalling and start confessing. Who are you to ask mercy of one whom you would destroy if you could? Who are you to talk of sportsmanship and a sense of humor? You, who by your own confession have set up a living hell on earth, where you punish innocent people through their fears and ignorance. As for minding my own business, that is just what I'm doing when I force you to tell how you control people through their own minds. My business, if it can be called a business, is helping to unlock the doors of the self-made prisons in which men and women are confined because of the fears you have planted in their minds.
My greatest weapon over human beings consists of two secret principles by which I gain control of their minds. I will speak first of the principle of habit, through which I silently enter the minds of people. By operating through this principle, I establish, I wish I could avoid using this word, the habit of drifting. When a person begins to drift on any subject, he is headed straight toward the gates of what you earthbound call hell.
Describe all the ways in which you induce people to drift. Define the word and tell us exactly what you mean by it.
I can best define the word drift by saying that people who think for themselves never drift, while those who do little or no thinking for themselves are drifters. A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind. He would rather let me occupy his mind and do his thinking than go to the trouble of thinking for himself. A drifter is one who accepts whatever life throws in his way without making a protest or putting up a fight. He doesn't know what he wants from life and spends all of his time getting just that. A drifter has lots of opinions, but they are not his own. Most of them are supplied by me. A drifter is one who is too lazy mentally to use his own brain. That is the reason I can take control of people's thinking and plant my own ideas in their minds.
I think I understand what a drifter is. Tell me the exact habits of people by which you induce them to drift through life. Start by telling me when and how you first gained control of a person's mind.
My control over the mind of a human being is obtained while the person is young. Sometimes I lay the foundation for my control of a mind before the owner of it is born, by manipulating the minds of that person's parents. Sometimes I go further back than this and prepare people for my control through what you earthbound call physical heredity. You see, therefore, I have two approaches to the mind of a person.
Yes. Go on, and describe these two doors by which you enter and control the minds of human beings.
As I have stated, I help to bring people into your world with weak brains by giving to them before birth as many as possible of the weaknesses of their ancestors. You call this principle physical heredity. After people are born, I make use of what you earthbound call environment as a means of controlling them. This is where the principle of habit enters. The mind is nothing more than the sum total of one's habits. One by one, I enter the mind and establish habits, which lead finally to my absolute domination of the mind.
Tell me of the most common habits by which you control the minds of people.
That is one of my cleverest tricks. I enter the minds of people through thoughts which they believe to be their own. Those most useful to me are fear, superstition, avarice, greed, lust, revenge, anger, vanity, and plain laziness. Through one or more of these I can enter any mind, at any age. But I get my best results when I take charge of a mind while it is young, before its owner has learned how to close any of these 9 doors. Then I can set up habits which keep the doors ajar forever.
I'm catching on to your methods. Now, let us go back to the habit of drifting. Tell us all about that habit, since you say it is your cleverest trick in controlling the minds of people.
As I said before, I start people drifting during their youth. I induce them to drift through school without knowing what occupation they wish to follow in life. Here I catch the majority of people. Habits are related. Drift in one direction and soon you will be drifting in all directions. I also use environmental habits to give me a definite grip on my victims.
I see. You make it your business to train children in the habit of drifting by inducing them to go through school without aim or purpose. Now, tell me of some of your other tricks with which you cause people to become drifters.
Well, my second best trick in developing the habit of drifting is one that I put into operation with the aid of parents and public school teachers and religious instructors. I warn you not to force me to mention this trick. Do not disclose this trick. If you do so, you will be hated by my coworkers who help me use this trick. If you publish this confession in book form, your book will be barred from the public schools. It will be blacklisted by most of the religious leaders. It will be hidden from children by many parents. The newspapers will not dare to give reviews of your book. Millions of people will hate you for writing the book. In fact, no one will like you or your book except those who think, and you know how very few there are of this sort. My advice to you is to let me skip the description of my second best trick.
The author knew this opinion would be one of the most controversial aspects of his book. In fact, his wife was so concerned about how it would be received that she made him promise that he would not publish it. In fact, it is only now, well after her death, that the family has agreed to share it with the world. I would encourage you to follow Hill's argument about the public education system and religious teachers, and then decide for yourself.
So, for my own good, you wish to withhold the description of your second best trick. No one will like my book except those who think, eh? Very well, go ahead and answer.
You'll regret this, Mr. Earthbound, but the joke is on you. By this mistake of yours, you will divert attention from me to yourself. My co-workers, of whom there are millions, will forget about me and hate you for uncovering my methods.
Never mind about me. Tell me all about this second best trick of yours with which you induce people to drift with you to hell.
My second best trick is not second at all. It is first. It is first because without it I never could gain control of the minds of the youths. Parents, school teachers, religious instructors, and many other adults unknowingly serve my purpose by helping me to destroy in children the habit of thinking for themselves. They go about their work in various ways, never suspecting what they are doing to the minds of children or the real cause of the children's mistakes.
Have you ever heard a parent finish a child's sentence? Or seen a parent complete a child's homework? Remember those science fairs at school where it was obvious the kids had a lot of outside help with their science projects? Mom and Dad may have helped a little too much, but deep down they know that their child appreciates the help and recognizes what great parents they are, right? Actually, the child may be thinking, Mom and Dad don't think I can do it on my own, so why bother? Eventually, this parental help will destroy the child's self-confidence. By allowing children to be truly in charge, parents will help their kids develop the habit of thinking for themselves.
I can hardly believe you, Your Majesty. I've always believed that children's best friends were those closest to them, their parents, their school teachers, and their religious instructors. Where would children go for dependable guidance if not to those who have charge of them?
That is where my cleverness comes in. There is the exact explanation of how I control 98% of the people of the world. I take possession of people during their youth, before they come into possession of their own minds, by using those who are in charge of them. I especially need the help of those who give children their religious instruction, because it is here that I break down independent thought and start people on the habit of drifting, by confusing their minds with unprovable ideas concerning a world of which they know nothing. It is here also that I plant in the minds of children the greatest of all fears, the fear of hell.
I understand that it is easy for you to frighten children with threats of hell, but how do you continue to make them fear you and your hell after they grow up and learn to think for themselves?
Children grow up, but they do not always learn to think for themselves. Once I capture the mind of a child through fear, I weaken that child's ability to reason and to think for himself, and that weakness goes with the child all through life.
Is that not taking unfair advantage of a human being by contaminating his mind before he comes into full possession of it?
Everything is fair that I can use to further my ends. I have no foolish limitations of right and wrong. Might is right with me. I use every known human weakness to gain and keep control of the human mind.
I understand your devilish nature. Now, let us get back to further discussion of your methods of inducing people to drift to hell here on earth. From your confession, I see that you take charge of children while their minds are young and pliable. Tell me more of how you use parents, teachers, and religious leaders to ensnare people into drifting.
One of my favorite tricks is to coordinate the efforts of parents and religious instructors so they work together in helping me to destroy the children's power to think for themselves. I use many religious instructors to undermine the courage and power of independent thought of children by teaching them to fear me. But I use parents to aid the religious leaders in this great work of mine.
How do parents help religious leaders destroy their children's power to think for themselves? I never heard of such a monstrosity.
I accomplish this through a very clever trick. I cause the parents to teach their children to believe as the parents do in connection with religion, politics, marriage, and other important subjects. In this way, as you can see, when I gain control of the mind of a person, I can easily perpetuate the control by causing that person to help me fasten it upon the minds of his offspring.
In what other ways do you use parents to convert children into drifters?
I cause children to become drifters by following the example of their parents, most of whom I have already taken over and bound eternally to my cause. In some parts of the world, I gain mastery over children's minds and subdue their willpower in exactly the same way that men break and subdue animals of lower intelligence. It makes no difference to me how a child's will is subdued, as long as it fears something. I will enter its mind through that fear and limit the child's power to think independently.
The devil will enter a child's mind through fear and then limit the child's power to think independently. I can remember the many religious leaders I have known in the past and instantly divide them between fear-based instructors and faith-based instructors. In fact, I still get a chill from reliving the fire and brimstone of some of the fear-based sermons I heard as a child. In contrast, I remember the uplifted feeling of hope and courage from the faith-based sermons. Hill's words of wisdom certainly ring true for me. Does fear then paralyze independent thought?
It seems that you go out of your way to keep people from thinking.
Yes, accurate thought is death to me. I cannot exist in the minds of those who think accurately. I do not mind people thinking as long as they think in terms of fear, discouragement, hopelessness, and destructiveness. When they begin to think in constructive terms of faith, courage, hope, and definiteness of purpose, they immediately become allies of my opposition and are therefore lost to me.
I'm beginning to understand how you gain control of the minds of children through the help of their parents and religious instructors, but I do not see how the school teachers help you in this damnable work.
School teachers help me gain control of the minds of children, not so much by what they teach the children, as because of what they do not teach them. The entire public school system is so administered that it helps my cause by teaching children almost everything except how to use their own minds and think independently. I live in fear that someday some courageous person will reverse the present system of school teaching and deal my cause a death blow by allowing the students to become the instructors, using those who now serve as teachers only as guides to help the children establish ways and means of developing their own minds from within. When that time comes, the school teachers will no longer belong to my staff.
Here is the essence of Hill's critique of public education, written in 1938. Do you agree with him? Think of young children during kindergarten and first grade. They are enthusiastic and volunteer for everything, raising their hands and excited to learn. Now fast forward 10 years and think about those same children as high school students, the ones sitting in the back of the class, never making eye contact with adults and absolutely never volunteering or asking a question. They have disengaged from the learning process. What happened to these children? 10 years of schooling. They perceive that to make an error will subject them to ridicule and scorn. So they cease to participate in order to protect themselves. They are taught that the solutions to all problems and conflicts lie not in their own hands and minds, but in the hands and mind of the teacher, the representative of the authorities. To act independently in the face of conflict brings swift rebuke and reprisal from the teacher. The children are thus discouraged from independent thought and indoctrinated with the concept that they are incapable of resolving their own problems. While there are many excellent teachers, Hill's critique seems validated by the state of education today. If you agree with Hill, what do you think we can do about it? One thing we should do is seek out those teachers and schools who encourage independent thought in their students and applaud them for their courage.
I was under the impression that the purpose of all schooling was to help children to think.
That may be the purpose of schooling, but the system in most of the schools of the world does not carry out the purpose. School children are taught not to develop and use their own minds, but to adopt and use the thoughts of others. This sort of schooling destroys the capacity for independent thought, except in a few rare cases where the children rely so definitely upon their own willpower that they refuse to allow others to do their thinking. Accurate thought is the business of my opposition, not mine.
What relationship, if any, has your opposition with the homes, the churches, and the schools? Your reply to this question should be interesting.
Here is where I make use of some more of my clever tricks. I cause it to appear that everything done by the parents, the school teachers, and the religious instructors is being done by my opposition. This diverts attention from me, while I manipulate the minds of the young. When religious instructors try to teach children the virtues of my opposition, they generally do so by frightening them with my name. That is all I ask of them. I kindle the flame of fear into proportions which destroy the child's power to think accurately. In the public schools, the teachers further my cause by keeping the children so busy cramming non-essential information into their minds, they have no opportunity to think accurately or to analyze correctly the things their instructors teach them.
Do you claim for your cause all those who are bound by the habit of drifting?
No. Drifting is only one of my tricks through which I take over the power of independent thought. Before a drifter becomes my permanent property, I must lead him on and ensnare him with another trick. I will tell you about this other trick after I finish describing my methods of converting people into drifters.
Do you mean you have a method by which you can cause people to drift so far away from self-determination that they can never save themselves?
Yes, a definite method, and it is so effective it never fails.
Do I understand you to claim your method is so powerful your opposition cannot reclaim those whom you have permanently ensnared through drifting?
I claim just that. Do you think I would control so many people if my opposition could prevent me? Nothing can stop me from controlling people except people themselves. Nothing can stop me except the power of accurate thought. People who think accurately do not drift on any subject. They recognize the power of their own minds. Moreover, they take over that power and yield it to no person or influence.
Go ahead and tell me more of the methods by which you cause people to drift to hell with you.
I cause people to drift on every subject through which I can control independent thought and action. Take the subject of health, for example. I cause most people to eat too much food, and the wrong sort of food. This leads to indigestion and destroys the power of accurate thought. If the public schools and the churches taught children more about proper eating, they would do my cause irreparable damage. Marriage. I cause men and women to drift into marriage without plan or purpose designed to convert the relationship into harmony. Here is one of my most effective methods of converting people into the habit of drifting. I cause married people to bicker and nag one another over money matters. I cause them to quarrel over the bringing up of their children. I engage them in unpleasant controversies over their intimate relationships and in disagreements over friends and social activities. I keep them so busy finding fault with one another that they never have time to do anything else long enough to break the habit of drifting. Occupation. I teach people to become drifters by causing them to drift out of school into the first job they can find, with no definite aim or purpose except to make a living. Through this trick, I keep millions of people in fear of poverty all their lives. Through this fear I lead them slowly but surely onward until they reach the point beyond which no individual ever has broken the drifting habit. Savings. I cause people to spend freely and to save sparingly, or not at all, until I take complete control of them through their fear of poverty. Environment. I cause people to drift into inharmonious and unpleasant environments in the home, in their places of occupation, in their relationship with relatives and acquaintances, and to remain there until I claim them through the habit of drifting. Dominating thoughts. I cause people to drift into the habit of thinking negative thoughts. This leads to negative acts and involves people in controversies and fills their minds with fears, thus paving the way for me to enter and control their minds. When I move in, I do so by appealing to people through negative thoughts which they believe to be their own. I plant the seeds of negative thought in the minds of people through the pulpit, the newspapers, the moving pictures, the radio, and all other popular methods of appeal to the mind. I cause people to allow me to do their thinking for them because they are too lazy and too indifferent to think for themselves.
I conclude from what you say that drifting and procrastination are the same. Is that true?
Yes, that is correct. Any habit which causes one to procrastinate, to put off reaching a definite decision, leads to the habit of drifting.
I cause people to allow me to do their thinking for them because they are too lazy and too indifferent to think for themselves. Laziness plus indifference equals procrastination equals drifting. This describes a true drifter as defined by Hill. Since I have been a true procrastinator for most of my life, this hits a little too close to home for me. I like to use the excuse that I work best under pressure, but that is all it is, an excuse for why I procrastinate. Can you think of examples in your own life when laziness and indifference led you off your path to success? When an opportunity slipped through your fingers because you were too slow to seize it in time?
Is man the only creature who drifts?
Yes. All other creatures move in response to definite laws of nature. Man alone defies nature's laws and drifts when he wills. Everything outside the minds of men is controlled by my opposition, by laws so definite that drifting is impossible. I control the minds of men solely because of their habit of drifting, which is only another way of saying that I control the minds of men only because they neglect or refuse to control and use their own minds.
This is getting to be pretty deep stuff for a mere human being. Let us get back to the discussion of something less abstract. Please tell me how this drifting habit affects people in the everyday walks of life, and tell me in terms the average person can understand.
I would prefer to keep this interview up among the stars.
No doubt you would. That would save you from being exposed. But let us come back to Earth. Tell me now what drifting is doing to us as a nation here in the United States.
Frankly, I may as well tell you that I hate the United States as only the devil can hate.
That is interesting. What is the cause of this hatred?
The cause was born on July 4, 1776, when 56 men signed a document which destroyed my chances of controlling the nation. You know that document as the Declaration of Independence. Had it not been for the influence of that damnable document, I would now have a dictator running the country, and I would stop this right to free speech and independent thought that is threatening my rule on earth.
Am I to understand from what you say that nations controlled by self-appointed dictators belong in your camp?
There are no self-appointed dictators. I appoint them all. Moreover, I manipulate them and direct them in their work. Nations run by my dictators know what they want and take it by force. Look what I have done through Mussolini in Italy. Look what I am doing through Hitler in Germany. Look what I am doing through Stalin in Russia. My dictators run those nations for me because the people have been subdued through the habit of drifting. My dictators do no drifting. That is why they rule for me the millions of people under their control.
What would happen if Mussolini, Stalin, and Hitler turned traitors and disavowed you and your rule?
That will not happen because I have them too well bribed. I am paying each of them with the sop of his own vanity, by making him believe he is acting on his own account. That is another trick of mine.
Let us come back to the United States and learn something of what you are doing to convert people into the habit of drifting.
Right now I am paving the way for a dictatorship by sowing the seeds of fear and uncertainty in the minds of the people.
Through whom are you carrying on your work?
Mainly through the president. I am destroying his influence with the people by causing him to drift on the question of a working agreement between employers and their employees. If I can induce him to drift for another year, he will be so thoroughly discredited I can hand over the country to a dictator. If the president continues to drift, I will paralyze personal freedom in the United States, just as I destroyed it in Spain, Italy, Germany, and England.
In 1938, when Hill was writing this manuscript, the president was Franklin D. Roosevelt. Are the devil's comments applicable today? Do you think Hill might write the same words today as he wrote 70 years ago?
What you say leads me to the conclusion that drifting is a weakness which inevitably ends in failure, whether among individuals or nations. Is that your claim?
Drifting is the most common cause of failure in every walk of life. I can control anyone whom I can induce to form the habit of drifting on any subject. The reason for this is twofold. First, the drifter is just so much putty in my hands, to be molded into whatever pattern I choose, because drifting destroys the power of individual initiative. Second, the drifter cannot get help from my opposition, because the opposition is not attracted to anything so soft and useless.
Is that why a few people are wealthy while the majority of people are poor?
That is exactly the reason. Poverty, like physical illness, is a contagious disease. You find it always among the drifters, never among those who know what they want and are determined to get just that. It may mean something to you when I call your attention to the fact that the non-drifters, whom I do not control, and those who possess most of the wealth of the world, happen to be the same people.
I have always understood that money was the root of all evil, that the poor and the meek would inherit heaven, while the wealthy would pass into your hands. What have you to say of that claim?
Men who know how to get the material things of life generally know how to keep out of the hands of the devil as well. The ability to acquire things is contagious. Drifters acquire nothing except that which no one else wants. If more people had definite aims and stronger desires for material and spiritual riches, I would have fewer victims.
The actual verse of the Bible talks about the love of money, not money itself. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10.
I assume from what you say that you do not claim fellowship with the industrial leaders. Evidently, they are not friends of yours?
Friends of mine. I'll tell you what sort of friends of mine they are. They have belted the entire country with good roads, thus bringing into close communion the people of both city and country. They have converted ores into steel, with which they have built the skeletons of great skyscrapers. They have harnessed electrical power and converted it into 1,000 uses, all designed to give man time to think. They have provided through the automobile personal transportation to the humblest citizen, thus giving to everyone the freedom of travel. They have provided every home with instantaneous news of what is happening in all parts of the world through the aid of the radio.
And now television, smartphone, satellite, and internet.
They have reared libraries in every city, town, and hamlet, and have filled them with books, giving to all who read a complete outline of the most useful knowledge mankind has gathered from his experiences. They have given the humblest citizen the right to express his own opinion on any subject, at any time, anywhere, without fear of molestation. And they have seen to it that every citizen may help make his own laws, levy his own taxes, and manage his own country through the ballot. These are but some of the things the industrial leaders have done to give every citizen the privilege of becoming a non-drifter. Do you think these men have helped my cause?
Who are some of the present-day non-drifters over whom you have no control?
I have control over no non-drifter, present or past. I control the weak, not those who think for themselves.
Go ahead and describe a typical drifter. Give your description point by point so I can recognize a drifter when I see him.
The first thing you will notice about a drifter is his total lack of a major purpose in life. He will be conspicuous by his lack of self-confidence. He will never accomplish anything requiring thought and effort. He spends all he earns and more, too, if he can get credit. He will be sick or ailing from some real or imaginary cause, and calling to high heaven if he suffers the least physical pain. He will have little or no imagination. He will lack enthusiasm and initiative to begin anything he is not forced to undertake, and he will plainly express his weakness by taking the line of least resistance whenever he can do so. He will be ill-tempered and lacking in control over his emotions. His personality will be without magnetism, and it will not attract other people. He will have opinions on everything but accurate knowledge of nothing. He may be jack of all trades, but good at none. He will neglect to cooperate with those around him, even those on whom he must depend for food and shelter. He will make the same mistake over and over again, never profiting by failure. He will be narrow-minded and intolerant on all subjects, ready to crucify those who may disagree with him. He will expect everything of others, but be willing to give little or nothing in return. He may begin many things, but he will complete nothing. He will be loud in his condemnation of his government, but he will never tell you definitely how it can be improved. He will never reach decisions on anything if he can avoid it, and if he is forced to decide, he will reverse himself at the first opportunity. He will eat too much and exercise too little. He will take a drink of liquor if someone else will pay for it. He will gamble if he can do it on the cuff. He will criticize others who are succeeding in their chosen calling. In brief, the drifter will work harder to get out of thinking than most others work in earning a good living. He will tell a lie rather than admit his ignorance on any subject. If he works for others, he will criticize them to their backs and flatter them to their faces.
You have given me a graphic description of the drifter. Please now describe the non-drifter so that I may recognize him on sight.
The first sign of a non-drifter is this: he is always engaged in doing something definite, through some well-organized plan which is definite. He has a major goal in life toward which he is always working, and many minor goals, all of which lead toward his central scheme. The tone of his voice, the quickness of his step, the sparkle in his eyes, the quickness of his decisions clearly mark him as a person who knows exactly what he wants and is determined to get it, no matter how long it may take, or what price he must pay. If you ask him questions, he gives you direct answers and never falls back on evasions or resorts to subterfuge. He extends many favors to others, but accepts favors sparingly, or not at all. He will be found up front, whether he is playing a game or fighting a war. If he does not know the answers, he will say so, frankly. He has a good memory, never offers an alibi for his shortcomings. He never blames others for his mistakes, no matter if they deserve the blame. He used to be known as a go-getter, but in modern times he is called a go-giver. You will find him running the biggest business in town, living on the best street, driving the best automobile, and making his presence felt wherever he happens to be. He is an inspiration to all who come into contact with his mind. The major distinguishing feature of the non-drifter is this: he has a mind of his own and uses it for all purposes.
Can you think of someone you know who fits this description? Is that person a non-drifter?
Is the non-drifter born with some mental, physical, or spiritual advantage not available to the drifter?
No. The major difference between the drifter and the non-drifter is something equally available to both. It is simply the prerogative right of each to use his own mind and think for himself.
What brief message would you send to the typical drifter if you wished to cure him of this evil habit?
I would admonish him to wake up and give.
Give what?
Some form of service useful to as many people as possible.
So the non-drifter is supposed to give, is he?
Yes, if he expects to get, and he must give before he gets.
Some people doubt that you exist.
I wouldn't worry about that if I were you. Those who are ready to be converted from the habit of drifting will recognize the authenticity of this interview by its soundness of counsel. The others are not worth the trouble it would take to convert them.
Why do you not try to stop me from publishing this confession I'm wringing from you?
Because that would be the surest of all ways to guarantee you will publish it. I have a better plan than trying to suppress publication of my confession. I will urge you to go ahead with the publication, then sit back and watch you suffer when some of my faithful drifters begin to make things hot for you. I will not need to deny your story. My followers will do that for me. See if they don't.
Knowing that indeed this book was not published for more than 70 years after Hill wrote these words, I am intrigued and anxious to learn what else he will reveal. There are plenty of fireworks still ahead.
Chapter 5.
Oh man.
Well,
Wow.
that was pretty intense. Talk
Wow.
about a
That's all I
long,
have to say.
yeah. Yeah, he has a pretty long list of what a drifter is, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, there were some interesting analogies in there that just, it's incredible from 1930s, 1920s and 30s, that's really coming from. Here we are in 2026, and gee whiz, little has changed,
Yep.
and that creates wonderful opportunities to induce change now that we have the weapon in front of us. So, anybody have any thoughts, any questions, ideas, inputs?
If you'd like, you can go ahead, raise your hand, and we will go ahead and call on you to share. Easy to do. Put your cursor in the middle of the screen where you see these images. On the bottom is the raise hand button. Click on that, and we'll call on you in the order in which we receive you. Sandy Baker, you're the first one. Let's go ahead and get started with you. Welcome.
Hi. So two things hit me really hard. And the first one was, well, this is the second one, so I'll go backwards. The first one that hit me was where he was saying that in the church he gets people to fear. And I have first-hand knowledge of that because when I was going to preschool, or not preschool, when I was going to Sunday school, we were supposed to take our Bible to church, and I forgot, and they had somebody dressed up as the devil who came in and got me. And I never went back to church for the longest time for that. Never ever, because that scared me. And the second one that really got me is he said that sometimes I lay the foundation for my control of mind before the owner of it is even born by manipulating the minds of that person's parents. That I have seen so many times through generational trauma. It can go from grandparent to parent to child. And I've just seen that all over. So I thought that was really interesting that it was in this book too. That's all I had.
Well, that's pretty insightful, and that's a real life experience.
That was.
Awesome, Sandy.
Thank you.
Sandy, thank you for the share. Wow. Yeah, and I agree that so many insights, so many knowledge bombs in this particular chapter. Coach Bob, go ahead, open up, and please share with us.
Dana, thanks again for doing this. I really appreciate it. I just to follow up on Sandy's comment. Yeah, I don't know why they do that, but they add fear into churches so much because my pastor was like that too. If you don't go, you're going to be in trouble. I don't know why they use the fear so much in churches, but that's probably a separate thing. My big comment is I didn't understand why they didn't want to publish this before. What was so bad in the comments, and if so, why didn't they just change that in the publication and get it published?
Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. Of course, the original reason was that if you read the book as opposed to just what this, the Audible book is conveying, there's several paragraphs in there that really take it to the politicians, the churches, and so forth. And at the time, in the 30s and the 20s, there was still a pretty big religious movement going on. Protestant was really growing and taking over, and it was, the churches were a big deal. And they were also coming into the fabric of society more and more. So when you run a business and you're a socialite, somebody comes along and writes a book that basically said the clergy, the teachers, and you as parents, by the way, are all responsible for wrecking your kid's future life and wrecking the community and the state and the country and the world. That's kind of like a stick of dynamite, dropped in your underwear, so to speak. It's that's huge. Why didn't they take it out? Well, I think Napoleon Hill was a radical. He wrote the manuscript. He left it as is. The Napoleon Hill Foundation, which was formed after many years. I think it was formed prior to his death when he was still quite old. But I think they maintained a degree of ethics and did not take it out of the book. Now, there are several things that have been removed out of the audio. And some of that, I think, is a bit of censorship. But the more I'm listening to the audio and going through the book, I think to a certain extent, they're minimizing redundancy. And because some of these themes show up in multiple places. And so, there's some things they've left out and they don't seem to be bringing back out. You have to read the book to find them. But I think they're trying to maintain as close to the theme and the intent of the book as possible without stripping out too much. But to dilute it, to take what he wrote out, it would just wreck the whole message.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
And if you look at it, I mean, there were so many things in there. Like if you take the modern generation, what's going on right now? One thing I read this morning in one of the news feeds was parents are up in arms over grade school kids walking out of class and protesting and carrying signs that they made against ICE and immigration control and things like this. And one of the signs I saw is the typical one, which is immigrants built this country. Well, how does a 10-year-old get that information in their head? You got teachers and the teachers' unions. Well, I don't want to bash teachers or anything, but these kids have no idea what they're putting up there. And one of the comments that I would give them is, well, immigrants, yes, but they were legal immigrants, and they were immigrants who came over here with a desire and a purpose to build, to grow, to have prosperity and freedom, not to come in and commit crimes and control people through drug flow and all these other things that have now been uncovered. But this book, I mean, it's talking about the very thing that's happening today, and it's branding it as, these are drifters. These are people under my control. So, yeah. I think the other part is, we talked about this quite a while ago, was Napoleon Hill doing this on his own, or was he being directed? And the more you get into this book, the more you see that at that era, in that time, I'm sure the guy was extremely intelligent, but he was being guided. His other self and beyond that was teeing up all the shots here. Because I find it somewhat difficult to believe that he could pen this stuff. Of course, maybe it's just history repeats itself and we're creatures of habit. Boy, no pun intended there. But yeah, the book is invaluable. The more you get into it, if you get past the history, when it occurred, the 30s and 20s kinds of thinking and references, this thing is just absolutely applicable. So
I appreciate it. Thanks for the insight on that.
Good stuff, Bob.
Coach Bob, wow. Thank you very much. All right. I want to save Robert for a little bit later. So Robert, hang in there, please. Linda Collins has her hand up. So Linda, go ahead, unmute yourself and please share with us.
Hello, and I'm going to turn my camera on, and I hope I don't scare everybody away.
No, not at all.
I'm not dressed for the occasion.
Hey, listen. Linda, we're not part of the fear thing.
Okay,
So thank you for your courage. Thank you for your bravery. You look gorgeous.
thank you, Robert. And then you are handsome as always. Terry, no intent. I'm not trying to take him from you, but you've always been handsome. Okay. But hello to everyone, and it's good to be here and see the universe and God, or whatever you want to call him, or whoever you want to call it, had it meant for us to be here. This is an intended moment. Why I say that is because your first chapter that I heard from you, Dana, nice to meet you. And when I said Dana, I was looking for a woman, not a man. So
I run into that all the time.
But anyway, it is great to meet you. But the reading of this book caused me to want to have this book in my hand before I heard the fourth chapter. So I did get it. It came in the package, my package. But this book and this book was never read to us in school. We never knew any of this. I stand to say our children are missing some very important points because this book here teaches you. And if you do it for 100 days, and thanks to Robert Hollis for sharing this book with me and his book, which I don't have at hand right now because that's upstairs. How is it working? These books are not in our schools. These books are not being taught to our children. These things are valuable. As Wallace said, even if it's written on a piece of paper and that paper brings you value, then what you pay for this book gives you everything. You get more out of it than what you paid for. Hello?
Yep.
Hello?
Amen.
Hello?
Amen. Amen.
Hello? And Robert, your book is upstairs in my room. How is that working? Okay. And this has changed my mind so much. I do this for 100 days, and maybe I might miss a day because I fall asleep reading. So I had to do the audio to listen. But this, Dana, Mr. Dana, I am following you to the end, but I wish I could have been here when I would love to hear you. Oh my God.
Linda,
Awesome.
we have Dana in the mastermind on that book on YouTube. We'll make sure we get it to you.
Nope. I'm joining the mastermind because I don't want to miss a thing. Because we're going somewhere in 2026. Hello, unlimited people, family.
Love you, Linda. Love you, love you,
all.
love you.
All right.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Linda.
Linda, oh my gosh, thank you. And by the way, I did post the link in the chat for anybody who wants to look at the Science of Getting Rich Mastermind that we did do with Dana. It was a couple of years ago, and it was so worth it. It still is worth it today. So the link is in the chat. Please feel free to go and listen to that as well. But wow, what we are experiencing is incredible with this book, and we're only chapter 4. Can you believe it? Whew. And there's so much more to come. Robert, thank you for your patience. Go ahead, unmute, and share with us your take on this.
Well, I'm sure I feel like a lot of people, and maybe not, maybe not. You know, going through that whole part, Dana, I think that this would be the first sign, I'm just saying this, the first sign that believe that you're an original thinker is when you're willing to admit that you're a drifter. I think there's a lot of people that will watch this live or recorded, and they'll do the classic thing as a lot of people. They're not talking about me, but you know who this is for? This would be perfect for my spouse. You know what I mean? This would be perfect for my children. This would be perfect for my parents. You know, you always see that thing. And when I first met my really first mentor, that I didn't get a lot of exchange with him, but that was Roger Penske, which is, I mean, to think where he has gone since I stopped working for him 40 years ago. I mean, the guy really, truly has 100x'd his life since I left him. And he's still using the same principles. And this was one of the other things that he shared with me, Dana, that I think you'll love. He said, I need you to ask yourself this question and be brutally honest. Have you ever had an original thought? So ask yourself that question, think, And then when you think you came up with original thought, this was before the internet that he said. He said, do some research in encyclopedias and books or whatever, because when you find out that that wasn't original thought, then you'll get to understand that you're not using the part of the brain that you need to use. So now we live in a world where we have AI and Google. And if you ask yourself, have I ever had an original thought? And then you take that thought and put it in Google or put it in AI, and you find out what book it came out of. You find out what movie it was quoted in. You find out that it's lyrics in some song or a play. And now all of a sudden you go, wow, maybe I need to focus on original thought. So when he made me do that, it changed who I was, along with the phrase, how do you know that? See, that was another lesson that he beat me up with, that I'm still glad that he beat me up on it. Because now I know there's some people that watch stuff that's on the internet while they're doing doom scrolling. And do you guys realize that my very first thought is this is made up? It's not that, did you see that this happened? My first thought is two. This is wrong. This is not correct. Now, the second thought I have, is it really worth my time to do the research to find out if this is true or not? That answer is always no. There's not too many things that I've ever seen on social media where someone said something and I thought, I bet you this is not correct. I bet you this is fake. Should I do the research to find out if this is true or not? No, because I'd never share it. I just need to move on. And so those are really two things that I got. Is one is admitting that I'm a drifter in a lot of things that I can consistently get gooder and gooder. And then the other thing that I think is very powerful is another thing that he said, is he said, when you realize that the majority of people, he always used to use a 97.3. And the reason that he used 97% of people don't think is because he would always point to this study that may or may, yeah, if it's coming from him, I'm sure it's true. But he said there was a study that was put in some books that, you know, if you put 100 people in a room, that 3 people would raise up throughout that room, regardless of what's happening. So this is where the studies have come from. If you divided the money, took all the money in the world, divided it between everyone, that the top 3% of people would have that money all back in 5 years. Because they would create the stuff that the other people would want to spend money on. Isn't that crazy? So everybody's saying, listen, you know, so we've seen this repeatedly, and not understanding how to think that if someone wins the lottery, 3 years later, they don't have any money because they don't have original thought. You know what I mean? So people go, well, you just take the money and you put it in an investment. Do you know how few people on the planet know how to invest? So I tell people all the time that, and this is serious, because I haven't spent my 10,000 hours of mastery in investing. I am the worst investor I know. I tell people, if you hear me say that I invested something in something, pull your money out immediately, because it's going to go down from there. And knowing your strengths is also knowing where your weaknesses are. So I've seen a lot of people that, you know, they'll build their business, they'll make millions of dollars, and then they get bored with it. But because they made millions of dollars and they get a lot of accolades, does not make you an expert in another field. So it's hilarious to see the Russell Brunsons and the Brendan Burchards and the Mike Dillards of the world, because they're always on your email list and they're like, hey, I made $100 million. So now I'm going to do something else. And then a few years later, Brendan Burchard sent out an email to everyone on how to lose $100 million. That because now he thought he was a smart investor. He loses his money, and now he's got to go back to what he's mastered. It's really hilarious how we've heard this with athletes. So just because you're a Hall of Famer, and got a championship ring on, in basketball doesn't make you a good business person. You know what I mean? This is again that the ego sort of gets us. But he said that when you really realize that the majority of the people on the planet, he would always say 97, because of this study, whether that study, I've never looked for it, you know what I mean? But apparently it was done by Harvard University, and I don't remember if it was actually talked about in Think and Grow Rich, but that might be something. But he would say that 97% of people on the planet would rather die than think. And so when he said this to me, I knew I wasn't a 3%er. So I can see how a chapter like this can really hit you, because for you to say that you haven't had an original thought, for you to say that you don't have a skill of accurate thinking, right? That you are part of this drifting group. That's very difficult. I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that are part of some kind of AA group, that's why they have you stand in front of the room and say, "Hi, I'm Robert Hollis. I'm an overthinker." Or that's what I said in Daily Wisdom today. So today I get to say, "Hi, my name is Robert Hollis and I'm a drifter." Because you can't change what you won't acknowledge.
Mhm.
So instead of patting yourself and constantly saying, "Well, I'm better than most people because I watch some of these reality shows on TV and I'm doing a lot better than them," doesn't mean that you're doing what's necessary to be the best person you need to be a role model, to be a light in this darkness. And I really appreciate a lot of people that said, "Well, Robert is this guy." and I know that based on what I'm learning from you, Dana, I'll be better at being that guy. So thank you very much. You had anything to say?
Well, I guess in closing, this particular segment of the chapter really identified, what a drifter and what a non-drifter is. And what that to me is a shopping list of things, of course, that I have to improve about myself, but it also gives you the list of how to help others. There are certain things that you can do to help people knock one of those off their list. And that to me is one of the real takeaways from a book like this. You can read a book like this and not do it with purpose or intent, and you get to the other end of it and you don't remember much of it, and you say, "Well, okay, I read it," and you put it on the shelf. But this book is packed with, like Craig said, it's packed with so many truth bombs that it really can be a manual for making yourself more productive and a powerful force to help others, because everybody is a drifter. We can help them put a GPS on their tattered raft.
And to get people to make it through the rest of this mastermind, Dana, can you answer a question for us? Is he going to help us learn not to be a drifter by the end of the book?
Yeah. Yeah. He's
I'm
already
sure there was a
started
few
doing
people
that.
here going, "Now that I know a drifter, is there any way can I speed read through the rest of the book?"
Yeah, he's gonna slam you a few more times. There's the second big trick. We'll get through the last part of this chapter, I think. Yeah, in the next session, we'll get through the last part. And then we get to the next dastardly trick he uses. And then it starts getting into how to overcome it. Now I'll just, I'll give you the big one right now because everybody knows it or should know it by now. The definiteness of purpose. I mean, that's going to be the reveal, but it up until now, like when we went through his history, from 1908 forward, definiteness of purpose became the mantra for his research, for his findings. So the Law of Success, the 8-book set that morphed its way into Think and Grow Rich, it's all centered around the definiteness of purpose. In fact, in Think and Grow Rich, there's one paragraph in there that he says the secret, and he never really tells you the secret in that book, but he says the secret of success is written no more than 100 times, or no less than 100 times in this book. Well, that secret was definite purpose. So that's going to be a big one. But unfortunately, most people, when they start thinking definite purpose, it becomes a complicated overthinking process. They try to make it too complicated. They try to look out 20 years and say, well, my purpose has to be anchored at 20 years in the future. No, it needs to be about 5 minutes away. Start with a small step. My purpose is do something. Stop doing this, do that, go forward. But to answer your question, yes, he is, and that'll be one of them. But he's got a few more things he's got to build on before he gets to actually answering that question and offering some other solutions.
Well, thank you, Dana. I love and appreciate you. I know you could be doing a million things other than walking us through this book. So I really appreciate you taking that talent and your time and doing this for us. It really means a lot.
It is my honor.
Thank you.
Craig.
And it is our honor, Dana, to have you here to help guide us through this book. I hope everybody is enjoying this, is learning from it. I think I honestly, I saw so much in this chapter than any of the other chapters that it just blew my mind. And Dana, thank you so much for sharing this, your knowledge and wisdom and guidance with us. We appreciate it. We will be back next week, Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern for our next chapter in Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, as told by Dana Scranton. And we want you to join us there. Also, if you're joining us for the first time in Unlimited Wisdom, we've got a whole calendar of events. Every single day there is something going on, and we want you to join us. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Daily Wisdom, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. Thursdays, it's a premium, is the Breakthroughs, and we get together and we talk about how we can help get you to the next level, and maybe a little outwitting the devil too. 2 p.m. at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern for the Breakthroughs. Friday at 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern, part of our premium package is the Imagination Hour with Matt Hollis. You will learn so much about the internet, AI, and other things. Matt is an incredible source of knowledge for those. Please join us. That's part of the premium package. That, in my opinion, alone is worth joining us on the premium package. Saturday, Ask Us Anything, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, where you get to ask anybody in the group anything, and we will help you get through that. Then on Sunday, Master's Mind. It's a really great way to end the previous week and start the new week. That's at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, open to everybody. And then, of course, on Monday is Recess, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon p.m. Eastern. And it's just an open forum so that we just chat, just like we were in a coffee shop or something like that. So there's our schedule. You can find out more when you go to Unlimited Wisdom and you click on the calendar. There's a whole bunch of things there. Plus, please share. And please have everybody that you know join us here on Unlimited Wisdom. That is the whole idea for Unlimited Wisdom, to share the unlimited wisdom that is out there and for all of us to share and enjoy. Bless you all, and thank you so much. Some of the things in the chat are available. If you want to download the chat, click the 3 dots in the meeting chat, and then click Save Chat. It will download to your computer as we finish. And on that note, until next time, please be good to yourselves. Be cash. Bye-bye. I'm going to go ahead and unmute so we can all say so long and have a fantabulous Wednesday.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you, Craig.
Bye,
Thanks
everybody.
again.
Thank you,
Bye.
Justin,
Really appreciate
Matthew,
it, Dana.
Melody,
Thank you.
Lisa Marie, Linda, Coach Bob,
Bye-bye.
Sandy. I agree with you.
Everyone. Yes.
Coach Bob, Bill Shoemaker, Michael,
Bye.
Angela,
Have a great
Dana,
day.
and Coach. She's the hostess with the mostest.
Yeah.
I keep thinking a hostess
Okay.
cupcake.
The hostess to cupcake.
Okay.